Hey race fans, this is Phil Blount, and let me start out by telling you a little story. Last night, because it's holiday season, our family, we were watching one of my favorite movies, It's a Wonderful Life. And you know, in that movie, because I bet you've seen it, one of the best lines is Jimmy Stewart, when he gets excited, something good happens, he says, "Hot dog." Well, that's exactly the way I felt when this lady agreed for us to come out and let us visit with her. Kelley Earnhardt Miller. How cool is this? Thank you for letting us come out. Here we are sitting in the JR Motorsports
our studio.
Yes. I mean, this isn't just any office. This is your studio. Kelley, thank you for having us. We are thrilled to be here. Let me start out by asking you a few questions. You know, we're all about history. So you've got your family has a rich tradition in history. Tell us any stories you may have or anything that stands out to you relative to history of racing that you've been involved in or heard stories about.
Well, I mean, obviously I heard a lot of stories about my Papa Ralph and how he came through the sport. You know, I was a kid when a lot of the drivers that you guys make the cars for, you know, we moved in with our dad in 1981. Okay. And so going to the races from like 81 to I graduated school in 1990. That was kind of my time period to be around the racetrack and travel with Dad and Teresa and whatnot. And, you know, just being a kid, I was more concerned with like who was going to be around for me to play with. And we spent a lot of time in, back then, the paddock area. And that's where we parked our station wagons and our conversion vans and stuff like that. Right. And, you know, I was anxious to get out and see if Rebecca Petty was there or, you know, who I was going to be able to hang out and spend time with. So I spent a lot of time with her and playing around with her. And, you know, as far as I really didn't even pay attention to the racing, you know. Right. But I have some great memories of the Allisons because we all stayed at the same hotel, and it was kind of in Daytona, and Daytona was sort of the family vacation. So Dad would take us there, and we'd go a few days early, and you know we'd be able to spend time at the beach and at the hotel, and we would play chicken in the pool, and I was on Bobby's shoulders once, and I mean just a great memory for me. The Bodine, spent a lot of time with the Bodines. Yeah. They stayed at the same hotel, Jeff Bodine and his children, and so, you know, mine was more just being a kid, the family aspect and that kind of thing. You know, I didn't pay any attention to their, you know, on track stuff that was going on or any of the storylines or anything like that, you know.
Right. Well, Bobby is certainly one of our favorites. He's amazing. Great family.
Yeah.
Great family.
And, you know, I remember Richard Petty, when George Bush came to Daytona, that was a really big deal. Wow. You know, in 1984, I was there. We were there for that, and that was really cool. You know, the president was coming. You know.
Yeah. Did you see him?
We did see him. Yeah, we were at the little gathering because you know they were celebrating Richard's. I think at that point maybe it was like the 200, you know, or whatever. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a big leap forward in time from playing in a paddock area to now. Look at you. You are a co-team owner, and I might add a very successful co-team owner. What are some of the challenges you face as being a co-team owner?
Well, you know, the world is always evolving. So for us here, you know, we're the marketing aspect and how we talk to fans, and you know, just like this opportunity to provide them, you know, good content and to bring them into our world, you know, is something that we're always challenged with. You know, the sponsorship, the same things exist in running this business as they do anything else. You know, people, you know, do you have the best people? You know, are people all pulling in the same direction and, you know, working towards the same goals? You know, on the competition side of it, any of the technology and what we're doing to try to keep up. Sponsorship landscape, that's always, you know, interesting, and that's been very challenging since the economy.
Volatile.
Yeah, and it, you know, it's coming around, and you know, people are starting to want to sign up in longer stints, but still the challenge exists on what they can do in marketing for their, you know, the cost, and you know, is it, you know, sponsoring a race team, or is it going out in some other venue and
Right.
using that money differently. And with social media and all those things that have come along, it's a lot cheaper, to do things in those arenas than it has been your typical kind of marketing and advertising in the past. So, but it's fun. And when we have years like we did in 2014 with Chase winning the championship, this past year was a great success for us, taking 2 teams into the initial Chase format and have the opportunity to win a championship with both of them. Looking forward to this next year with William Byron coming on board. We're going to be 4 teams full.
Wow.
So, that's all exciting. We get to employ more people. We get to provide for more families. And, that's ultimately in this series, in the Xfinity series, is the reward, is the families that we get to provide for and, provide them their life and all of that in terms of, having a job and a career, because we certainly don't do it for the bottom line of what it brings on this side. But, the passion that we have for the sport and carrying on what our family's been involved in and then, the 150 families here that we have, is very rewarding for me. So.
Well, what a great answer.
Yeah.
What a great answer. I mean, it's
true.
obvious that people.
Yeah, it's true.
People that's what you're in the family. That's great. Okay. Ever since I've heard your name, that's one thing. But when I saw your spelling of your name, and I'm going back years ago, I always wondered, it's not Kelly, it's Kell and an extra E in there. Now, there's got to be a story behind that.
Yeah, I have to spell, usually when I'm telling someone that they'll ask my, name or my email address or something that's got my name in it, and I'm like, it's Kelley with an EY. Now, don't forget the EY, because people don't connect that with Kelley. They automatically just want to say Kelly. But so the story of that is my dad really liked the name Kelley, and the reason is because when he was in Kannapolis and starting out in racing, there was an auto parts store called Kelley Auto Parts, and it was Kelley. And so he really liked that, and he wanted to name me Kelley. My mom had other ideas. She had 2 other names picked out, and one of them was Jacqueline, which I could not imagine being called Jacqueline these days. And my dad didn't like any of those names, but my mom couldn't figure out something to go with Kelley.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure, if I remember the story right, they're down to the hospital, and my dad's really, wanting Kelley. And so they decided to name me Kelley King, which King is my grandmother Earnhardt's middle name.
Wow.
So she's Martha King Coleman Earnhardt. And so I'm Kelley King. And my dad, I always growing up, I thought that was weird. Like people say, what's your middle name? I'm like, King. It's not Nicole, it's not Ann, it's not Marie, it's not one of those pretty names. But my dad always said, if you grow up to do something famous, you can just be Kelley King, and that can be your, stage name. If you're a music star or an actress or something,
Right.
I've never had to, go by Kelley King, but when I was young, it was always Kelley King, Kelley King. That was how I would get called. But so that's the story to that. And now, once you grow up and you start, understanding and respecting your heritage and all that kind of thing. Everybody in today's time, so many people want to name their kids their first name like their maiden name, or something of that nature. And so it's special to me now. And I in turn, my grandfather was Ralph Lee, and I in turn named Carson, which was my first child, my firstborn, Kingsley. So I combined the King and the Lee into her middle name. Wow. So that's pretty cool.
Very cool.
So,
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned Carson. And she's now
16.
16.
Yeah. Makes me feel old.
Now she's racing, correct?
She does. She races a series called the Mini Outlaw Karts, and there's essentially sort of a go-kart body with wings on them, like a sprint car.
Right.
And she races out of a little dirt track here in Salisbury called Millbridge. She also goes to California, which is where her dad lives, and races out there. It's very popular. So this is the same kind of racing that Rico Abreu came from. Kyle Larson's where he cut his teeth out in California in this type of racing. And so she loves it. She enjoys it. She's 16. She's been doing this since she was 9, and she's got a couple championships in the box stock division, which is where she started. She races in the open division now, which is ages 14 to, grown men and women. She's the only female right now in the open series. They go, around around the dirt track, sliding around the dirt track, probably about 50 miles or so an hour. So it's pretty intense and
Right.
and pretty fun to watch her, but she enjoys it.
And you think she plans to continue?
Well, she likes it, and she's also has done. She just completed her second year as the host of NASCAR Hammer Down, which airs on Nickelodeon, which is a great kids magazine show.
Yeah.
And she really enjoys that aspect of it too. You know, when she was a little younger, she did some pit reporting for the Speed Channel at the time. So she kind of enjoys that aspect of TV. If you ask her what she wants to do, she just says she wants to be rich and famous. So, however she gets to that, I don't know.
That's not a bad objective for
But
goal.
who at 16 doesn't want to be rich and famous, right?
Right.
So,
Well, I've heard people say that you were quite a race car driver. Any
well, I
truth to
raced.
that?
So I raced. My dad. I went to college in Wilmington, and never came home. And my dad sent me flowers one day, and the card read, "It's been so long since I've seen you, I've almost forgot what you look like." And I was like, well, this might be a sign that he really wants me to move home. And I always wanted to race. I didn't get a chance as a kid to race, and really none of us did. You know, Dale raced a little bit of go karts, but you know, he was 15, 16, 17 when he was doing that. He wasn't a 4-year-old kid getting into racing. And so Dad said, you know, if you'll move home and finish school at Charlotte, you know, you can live on. I said, I've got to live on my own. I'm not coming back and living with y'all after I've been out on my own for 3 years. And he said, you can race. And, you know, so I was like, okay, well, this is cool. So I came back and I raced street stocks at Concord in the same cars that my brothers raced.
And you're
there.
now 18?
This was 1993, so I was 21.
Wow.
And then we put together the late model program with Mom and Pops and raced in 94, 5, and 6. But at that same time, I was working for the marketing company that did my dad's stuff for Goodrich. Then Dad bought Sports Image, which made a lot of the licensed product at the time. So I went to work there in 1995. So I'm working and I'm leaving at Fridays at like 2 o'clock to go racing. Wow. And sometimes I'd race Friday night if I was running at Tri-County or somewhere like that. And Saturday nights we'd go to Myrtle Beach or Hickory or somewhere like that. So really enjoyed it. And I mean, I never won. So, you know, if you're measuring, depending on how you're measuring success.
Right.
But everybody around me always said, you know, I had the tenacity to do it. And the people that helped me usually said, you're driving too deep in the corners, da 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 da. So I had the momentum to go and do it, you know. And my best finish was 4th. But in all the stories of from then to now, and even Elliott Sadler said it at the banquet at the Xfinity, and they were asking him about driving for Dale and I, and he's like, you know, well, Kelley was the best racer out of the bunch. And that's what they've always said. And I always like, oh, yeah, you know, Dale won 3 races, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, everybody says it. So I just agree with it now. You know?
Well,
they want to consider me the best.
I had heard
I'll
that your
be the
dad
best.
said it. That carries a lot of...
He did. I think I just, you know, of all of us, and Kerry didn't grow up with us. He didn't meet my dad till he was 16. And, you know, Dale's very timid and shy. Certainly got the talent to drive a race car.
Right.
I was kind of the one that was just more like my dad in a lot of ways.
Right.
You know, I wanted to ride motorcycles and dirt bikes and, you know, get dirty and kind of that tomboy.
Okay.
And then I also had the attitude to go along with it. I wasn't, afraid of people or scared to talk to people or,
maybe a little
very
competitive.
outgoing. Yeah, you know. So yeah. So who knows? Yeah.
Okay. And another thing I heard that you were very influential in getting Danica to racing.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can take, all the credit for that. I think, Danica had her sights set on coming to NASCAR. And we were able to provide that opportunity for her to do that part-time, which was a really unique situation because she was running, the IndyCar series and then coming over here and running 10 or 12 races for a couple of years until she ran her full-time season. But, that was really cool for me because it was sort of like I was, living out my dream through Danica because, wanting to be a race car driver. And at the time in the 90s, wasn't really a place for women. You had Shauna and Patty Moise and a couple people that were trying to make a go of it and just didn't have that success. So, Danica brought a lot of attention, a lot of marketing opportunity. She had some success in the IndyCar series. So, it was really exciting to be a part of that, and be a part of that with her. But I didn't drag her over here or anything. She had her goals and knew what she wanted to do.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure you had
It was
a
fun,
big influence.
fun to be a part of it. Yeah.
Okay, here's an interesting question, and maybe you've been asked this before, but how you mentioned about being famous. All right, when did you realize how powerful it was to have a last name Earnhardt?
Well, probably not until I was a lot older. When we were kids and, going to school, in the 80s, my dad had a pretty rough reputation, I mean, the intimidator, he might have moved a few people out of the way here and there. And so going to school, I mean, people either really liked us or really hated us,
Not much gray area.
Yeah. And when you're one of very few people that the kids at your school encounter that, their father or their family, somebody in their family is famous like that.
Right.
And so people automatically have a perception that, you're snobby or you get everything you want, and which is not the case with us. My dad did not hand us anything on the silver platter. We worked really hard. We had a lot of expectations for grades. We were grounded more times than we were not grounded. And, we had, a strict childhood. And, so that was, a challenge being a kid because, like these people, don't like me because of my dad or they think this about me or whatever. But, when I was an adult, there's a lot of doors that open up, with that name. And, so it, I really didn't think about it until my dad was, in the 90s winning multiple championships, back to back there in 93, 94, going to work in the business of selling the product and the fan attraction and all that he had and that legion of followers and all, it really started to hit me and make sense of, what dad is doing. And really, his death probably just compounded that so much more because, his death was treated like, Princess Diana.
Right.
I mean, you had these people just coming from everywhere to Dale Earnhardt Incorporated and leaving everything that they could. And it's all over the news. And it's like, wow, my dad was big, and meant so much to so many people. So that's, it all kind of just comes together at some point, to realize. And, we now don't take that lightly. We, Dale and I both feel, and I think, if you talk to our employees or you talk to people that we do business with, they, our dad just taught us to be humble and stay true to our roots and keep people first and keep family first. And that's what we do. That's why we do this. We're proud of his reputation in the sport and everything that he did. And, want to carry that tradition and carry that name through and know that that's what he'd be doing. He had all kind of plans, with Earnhardt Incorporated and all the different things, he'd probably still be a team owner today,
Sure.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, it's obvious just hearing you talk how much history means, and you've even shown it at some of the MRO events where we have our cars auctioned. You've been very kind. And,
I bought those for Dale actually, because his he loves the history of the sport and with a lot of times the drivers are there and they'll sign them, and so I thought that would be cool for Dale to hang on to. He scours eBay for all kinds of interesting and crazy things. So, and so many of these folks are older and you don't know, when the next opportunity is that we may not be able to converse with them. And I always love seeing Bobby and Judy there.
Yep.
And it's always make sure I get my picture and just share old stories and stuff. I was a big Davey Allison fan, so they, their whole family means a lot to me. But, I mean, it's so awesome to be able to, have these cars and be able to even do this today and share stories. And because I think it's important, even as we attract new fans in the sport, for them to understand the history and understand where the sport's been and what it's, what it was founded upon and the roots that it was founded upon. And, it's changed so much since these guys have raced. And you think, gosh, they raced a car like this with a seat like this, and the safety aspect of it today. It's like they went out and they put a lot on the line, doing what they were doing.
You mentioned how much Dale likes history. And he used to have a TV show, or he was a MC for a racing, was it back in?
Yeah, it was called Back in the
Back in
Day,
the
and he had this idea. It was sort of like if you watched, I think it was on VH1, but the VH1 pop-ups, and
Okay.
so they go back and maybe in a musical era, and all these little pop-ups pop up about something going on during that time frame. And so his concept was the same for racing, is to do Back in the Day, and they went back and told stories about certain eras of racing or whatever, and then they had little pop-ups about things that were going on within the sport and stuff. So it was really, or it might have been even milk was $1.29, a gallon of milk was $1.29 back then or something.
Yeah.
So it was a cool little concept.
Snapshot.
Yeah, he did that for a couple years and really enjoyed it, and he loves, I mean, when he's asked today to do some kind of historical thing, he loves getting involved in that. He did the CMT program with NASCAR that they did this last year, the documentary.
Right.
He was part of that and really enjoyed that. And, to the point where he reviewed all the footage and went back to them and was like, look, this isn't accurate. This isn't the way it went down. We've looked up this. And, he enjoys doing that for, he loves the Darlington Throwback Weekend for that reason. Yeah. And, he'll tell you more about all of the cars out there than half of us even know. He just really enjoys that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's so neat today to have a guy
to
like
have that. Yeah.
Well, listen, let me wrap up by telling you that on January 17th,
Yep.
we're going to have a Legends dinner where we honor and lift up these guys, and we're going to have 6 of the legend drivers that we've done, and have fans come and have a wonderful dinner. And
Yep, I got that on my calendar. So
well, that's
so
what
far,
I wanted the fans to hear that.
Yep.
You're going to be there. And
Yep, I've got that on my calendar. It's always, I mean, we come to a lot of events over at the Speedway, and I mean, I enjoy listening to the stories and being a part of that, and it's great to honor them and let them know that, their impact on the sport and what they've done is not forgotten.
Yeah.
It's appreciated and respected,
Right.
So, yeah, pretty cool.
Well, Kelley, I'm so glad that the fans get to
me
see
too.
how neat
Yeah.
of a lady you are and how
Thank
special a
you.
person. Thank you.
I'm glad
so
we got
much.
to do it, and get this wrapped up, and I hope everybody enjoyed it and has a, we're just looking forward. We're doing this in the holiday season and looking forward to a great 2017.
Wow.
And what you guys have up your sleeves for that year too.
We've got a lot of good things, and we're anxious to follow you and all the things you got going too.
Well, thank you. Yep, appreciate it.
Thank you.